TFR.
My faith in destiny is all I need to prevail.
Truth Frequency Radio.
I am perceiving the creation with renewed conviction, deliberating over whether I'd been taught a misnomer of lies, the likes of which had me formerly entrenched in belief that we as humanity inhabit a spherical earth comparable to every globe sitting atop a teacher's desk. As inheritors of the grand matrix, we are indoctrinated into a projection of reality which is itself established upon a preponderance of lies, speculative assumptions crafted carefully on web of deceit. Awakening makes one question everything thought relevant, all that one had so innocently accepted in assurance as evidentiary truth. Similar to the day after coming to truth on the conspiracy of 9/11 and government-sponsored terror, all must be assessed upon the certainty that things are not as they appear to be. The seeker of lost paradise may seem a fool to those whom have never sought the other worlds. Welcome, friends. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Secrets Revealed, and I thank those of you that have taken time to join us today and to fellowship with us. And it's going to be an interesting show. I'm honored to have as guests with me Robbie Davidson. Many of you know and are familiar with his work as Celebrate Truth on YouTube. He's recently, well, it's been a little bit now, but this latest documentary that has been released to world is called The Global Lie, and I have had chance to peruse it since the last time Robbie and I had chance to talk about his work and his efforts, and it's excellent. Most certainly recommend it to those of you that are interested in this as topic as far as flat earth and what is real according to the dynamics and motions of geocentrism and the fact that it goes against a lot of what we are told and reinforced as far as the educational systems. Our children are indoctrinated into even before the time that they learn a lot of anything else, that the globe sitting atop a teacher's desk goes all the way back in classrooms and gathering around it and using it as a model for such indoctrination happens very early on. But Robbie, are you there, brother?
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on, Zen.
Oh, yeah, it's my honor, and I appreciate you taking the time to join us, and I'm sure that you've been busy doing a lot of interviews since having released that documentary, and it's a most excellent work. How long have you been working with videos and the creation of the use of such medium?
I've been working in video probably for the last 15 years. It actually wasn't until this topic came about 8 months ago for me. I did a bunch of researching for about 2-3 months, and then I finally came out with my first video and created the channel Celebrate Truth on YouTube. But it really took this revelation of the flat earth. It was just so incredibly important. I felt that I had to get my name out there and start doing stuff on and putting my name in a public level. So,
well, that's awesome. It seems to be similar as far as catalyst for other individuals. I know that the Morgul was also inspired in such way, in that previously, even though he had a YouTube channel, he wasn't involved in any kind of manner like that with the creation of videos or putting out his opinion in any way. But this was the one thing that really lit a fire under him to do so. And so I'm really glad that it also affected you in similar manner and inspired you to also get involved on this as topic. And because I do, like you, I believe it's absolutely important. And I know that a lot of people, and I'm sure that you've received this same kind of conjecture, but a lot of people have told me, what's the relevancy? Why is this important, especially for Christians? And because they say that it has no bearing on salvation. And yet I always bring up the point that because so many have been indoctrinated into the Darwinian heliocentric worldview, and that a lot of people have been led astray because of the underpinnings of such belief, that it absolutely is critical as a salvation issue for those that have been led astray and that do not believe in the divinely inspired nature of the Gospels or in the fact that that there's a creator that basically created them in his own image. And so, my whole take on that is what's more important than that, especially with all the kids, coming up in school, being indoctrinated into this whole educational belief system, which gets them to believe that we evolved in monkeys and also that, there's so many Earths out there and that life just happened because of random circumstances. Just because the particular planet, part of a solar system, happened to be at the right distance to then just randomly evolve life. And your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I've been approached by many Christians, and they'll say, "Hey, what does this matter?" And I always say, "Truth matters."
Yes.
It's all throughout. At the end of all my videos on Celebrate Truth, I end with John 14:6. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Jesus saying that is a very profound statement. Not only did he say what I'm saying is truth, but he basically claimed that he was the embodiment of all truth, that the Word of God, being the Word, made flesh. Truth is incredibly important. I mean, true worshipers will worship me in spirit and in truth. Again, this is a very important topic. Now, I wouldn't go so far as to say it's salvational, but I agree with you, Zen, that this is important. And more what we're seeing with the scientism, the modern day scientism of our day, is creating an atheistic worldview that more and more people, when they understand that the reality that they're looking at is brought together without a creator, there's no need for a creator, we're an accident. And it's just an absolute assault on people's worth, their dignity. And we wonder why there's so many people depressed. But when it comes down to it, this is the most important thing when it comes to who we are, where did we come from, who created us, all of these questions, and they're all answered in the Bible. And I think that Satan, right from day one, has always been working to study theory, and he's basically looked at the foundation within Genesis. Now, if you can crack a foundation, the entire thing, comes crumbling down. So once you start doubting certain things, when science was telling you, certain principles, for example, that no, it's the sun that stands still, it's the earth that orbits around the sun, well, then you're starting looking at Joshua's long day where it says the sun and the moon stood still. Now you're starting to put it into question. Well, maybe they didn't really know science. Maybe they, were ignorant, and we've been taught that we're evolving constantly and we're getting smarter and smarter. And I think that's one of the very dangerous lies. These people, walked with God. They had incredible intelligence. You can see it within, the pyramids. You can see it with many cultures that they had very, very sophisticated technology, in my opinion. It's been massively suppressed, and it's one of the lies that over time we know so much more than our forefathers or people throughout history. So again, this comes down to an incomplete assault on the Word of God. It's an attack against the church, against the Bible, everything that stands. They want to basically destroy God in people's minds.
Yes. And let me just clarify. It's largely a salvation issue for those that do not have a foundation in the Word and don't understand or have relationship with God. And for Christians, this might be absolutely less of a salvation issue in that regard. But for those that have been led away from God or a relationship with God or with understanding as far as intelligent design because of their embrace and their being indoctrinated into the Darwinian heliocentric worldview, well, then that absolutely is a salvation issue for them because that's what led them away from God. And in the scriptures and in understanding and knowing who Yeshua Jesus Christ is, because we know that he is the way and the truth and the life, and that salvation does come through him. And so that would be the clarifying position on that. But and so let's talk about your documentary, why it was before we do that as well, when you answer this question, let people know where they can go to find your work, to if you want to share any contact information, whether Facebook, email, anything of that nature, and then tell us why it was, what inspired you to create that documentary, what kind of questions were going through your mind that you wanted to address.
Yeah, no, thanks. I mean, anyone that wants to see my work, they can go to YouTube. My channel is Celebrate Truth. I have all my contact information there. Facebook page, Celebrate Truth as well. You can look me up, Robbie Davidson. I'm on Facebook, and I also have a personal channel on YouTube as well. You should be able to find me pretty easily, through that information. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I put up my channel about 6 months ago, actually, was my first video. And since then, I think I've have about 70 videos now. I've got a lot of content that I put up, and I was touching a lot of issues because for me, Zen, this is all part of my path and my walk with God. But I, got into, just looking into different things like the Nephilim and, understanding certain things that were going on in our world, like 9/11 and chemtrails and just different things. Again, being a truther, I wanted to know what was truthful. And it wasn't until this issue that I decided, like, okay, I'm going to put my name out there and I'm going to start talking about this publicly. But with the global lie, it was important for me just to kind of piece it together in such a way, especially for Christians. I mean, anybody can find, useful information, and there's a lot of incredible things in that documentary. But to me, it was Christians because, again, a lot of Christians were like, oh, no, what does this matter? And who cares? And different things. And it was very important that while they were fighting this war, and the majority, when I say the majority of Christians, I'm talking about the ones that really could already see the lies with the Darwinism, and they could see, the whole creation versus evolution, and they had studied, through the great creation ministries, all the great things to equip them and give them confidence that, they're just not believing in a Bible. It's like, no, these things, happen, whether it was Noah's Ark or getting into dinosaurs or all these sort of things. But again, all the lies that have been taught about millions of years and billions and trillions of light years away, our cosmos. And so to me, it was really important to kind of put it together. And I guess the introduction of the film kind of gets into Copernicus. Now, I mean, you can go back to Pythagoras and you can get into, where they were really trying to prove we're on this round ball. But it was really Copernicus that really changed the whole geocentricity. Until then, and this is, the early church, everyone viewed it that the earth was stationary. It was geocentric, meaning, we don't move, but everything, the entire universe, the sun, moon, and stars, all revolve around us. Well, Copernicus really hated the church, and he really wanted to undermine Ptolemy's work that had been done for a long time by, changing it, where he would say, no, it's the earth that, orbits and the sun that stands still. Again, we're going back to sun worship, whether it's, the Egyptians with Ra and you're getting into Greece and Rome. But again, you're seeing this parallel all through time, right up to current, where we're really modern day sun worship heliocentric model is pretty much what it is. Now, I'm not saying that anyone that believes in heliocentricity or, worshiping the sun and everything, but you have to understand that these people that put these things in place really were giving significance to the sun. I mean, it's not in the documentary, but I'm doing further work on Copernicus. I'm actually looking to bring a lot of information together on, how it all came to be on a very, very deep level. But you're getting into Kepler and you're getting into Einstein and Newton. And when you start really researching these guys, you can kind of see how they're all working with one another, to try to really destroy God, to kind of destroy the foundations of the Word of God. So to me, with the Global Lie, it was really important just to bring it all together. It was the Global Lie is a biblical documentary. So anyone that,
doesn't like Bible verses or not interested in that, you might not like it. But again, if you're really looking to go deep into the Word of God, you're wanting to see what the Bible has to say, even just the early church fathers, everything, you will clearly see how it was all coming together, with this agenda, and the agenda is presented, but also clear verses in the Bible, going back to the Hebrew, the Greek. You can see these words. I mean, forever, I used to tell people all the time, Isaiah 40:22, he sits above the circle of the earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers, and say, see, it says a sphere, it says a ball. That was kind of the proof that, of course, we never believed in a flat earth. But I mean, when you actually look into that verse, you see something completely different. And not to mention, I mean, a few chapters back in Isaiah 22:18, it talks about, I will throw you like a ball. Isaiah clearly knew the word for a ball. And I mean, I'm looking at this as, it's holy inspired. It's the Holy Spirit inspired. Every word means something. And to start looking at all these verses, well, that's just figurative, or, oh, they really didn't understand it. I mean, they're very, very clear cut. So just kind of looking into this and really getting into the Bible, going on a deep level and saying, let's just take these verses, at face value. Let's just read them without, having a theological degree, or that we have to know, everything about hermeneutics. And, because you'll hear a lot of people say, well, you're not applying the proper hermeneutics or exegesis on it. But again, the Bible was written on a very simplistic form that children can understand it, but it also has some very, very deep layers. There's no doubt about it. But to me, it was very important to address it, to bring up the Bible and let people come at it honestly, and without a scientific worldview bias. I mean, I think it's really hard for any of us, quite frankly, to read something without our whole worldview there in the first place. So if you try your hardest to say, okay, I've never ever been taught anything. I never saw the globe in my classroom. Read all these scriptures and ask yourself, does it support a ball flying through space? It's just, there's nothing that can be found.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. And in doing this work as well, a lot of my listeners, especially when they were trying to challenge me on my work in this particular area and on this topic, they would also bring up that particular passage, that particular verse of Isaiah chapter 40. And like you and like others, I used the Strong's Concordance to look into the deeper meaning of the words of those verses, as well as the whole chapter as a whole. Chapter 40, especially the second part, because the first part is a commentary on the end of days, and then the second part is a reflection on Isaiah giving a description of the earth, in also tells us to reflect upon this description in accordance with the Genesis's account of creation. And so, I think even though that particular passage stands for itself, once you understand the difference between circle and ball, and that there's no other term, a Hebrew term, in the scriptures, which can define the earth as being spherical, or, round in that aspect as far as 3D. And so that the only word that could be applied in that way is the word ball. But again, as you mentioned, Isaiah used the term ball, which is the only other time, the only time it's found in scripture, 18 chapters previously. And so he knew the difference. And when you look up, even in a Google search, the difference between a ball and a circle, it's absolutely clear. And then when you apply the description to that as being with the heavens being stretched out as a curtain above it, then how that applies to being a tabernacle or a tent, it's only by utilizing and understanding the circle of the earth as being a floor, and then the heavens being as the walls, the sides, and also the roof of the tabernacle or tent, that you can absolutely make sense of that particular passage and what he's given description of. But another thing I think also that is very important, which a lot of people try to leave out in doing this particular study and looking at Isaiah chapter 40, is the verses previous to that, specific to verse 12 and 19 through 22, and then 18, because Isaiah is telling us to look back, like even in verse 21 where he says, have ye not known, have ye not heard, hath it not been told you from the beginning, and have ye not understood from the foundations of the earth? So he's the beginning, going back to Genesis and understanding how this passage relates to the description of the creation account, and how the earth was created first as foundation, the firmament then created above it on the second day, and then the sun and the moon and the other heavenly luminaries then placed into the firmament on day 4. And how any of that could make sense if you think that the earth is actually revolving once every 24 hours and on an axis, and annually revolving, orbiting around the sun. How the earth could be created and then just allowed to, be wherever it's at. And then on day 4, the Most High creates the sun, and then all of a sudden, then we're put in orbit around it. It just doesn't make sense to me. And then the other aspect of the chapters and the verses, as far as chapter 40, is that Isaiah says to prepare a graven image that shall not be moved. And the scriptures assert and affirm that the earth does not move. It is motionless, it's stationary, and it's fixed. It's been created as a fixed foundation for the heavens, which were spread out above it. Commentary?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, you're bringing up, the firmament, and you're talking about creation and getting into the foundations. And I think that's what's really important, because, I mean, for years, I studied creation versus evolution. I think many people out there, but there was always, just starting in Genesis, Genesis 1, I think 6 to 8, I think it's spoken right there. I think it all starts there, like it says, and God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And I mean, when you start looking at it and understanding it, even with the account of the flood, I mean, there are 2 massive bodies of water below the stationary plane and above this firmament. And I've always said, that really, if the firmament wasn't in there, I think we'd all drown. I think it's a protection layer. I think that there's multiple reasons for it. But again, we're talking about the ceiling of, the created earth. And I joke around, but I say, if you're going to create a dining room, and you want to find a light to light the dining room, are you going to find an object, a light that's a million times bigger than the dining room itself? It makes no sense that you're going to create a light for, the day, and you're going to have to create it, as big as what science has told us, And again, you start looking at logically, and especially when it says that the sun, moon, and stars were put in the firmament, not outside, in. Right? So everything has been put into an enclosed creation, even time itself. Time is like a linear structure that we understand. But again, time itself has to be in an enclosed. This whole idea of an infinite space, we're always been told about infinite. But I'm sorry, I mean, the only person would be the Most High, infinite. To give any quality to a created order as infinite, I think is almost blasphemous. We're finite. Everything that we see is finite. But again, this is what's important, looking at the firmament structure. And for the longest time, people looked at it and they had no idea. They came up with their theories, the canopy theory, and it was ice or it was vapor. And people would say, well, when the great flood in Noah's day happened, all the water, came down. But then you've got verses like in Psalms, talk about, the water still being above there,
Right.
And again, a lot of people say, could it be so easy as looking up in the sky? Why is the sky blue? Because there's water above us,
Right.
Science really has not fully explained that. It would make a lot of sense when you're getting into that. But again, we're reading the Bible, we're taking, looking at this, and most people will see these verses and they have a very hard time. But you have a hard time when you're all of a sudden coming at it from a spherical ball earth flying through space. And now you've got to bring in this, firmament that has a physical structure to it. I mean, you read the Bible clearly. It talks about it being strong. There's a transparency to it. It's like molten looking glass.
You see all these references to it, but then when you start understanding that really, if God, like Isaiah, we were talking about Isaiah 40:22, and reading, further into that verse, I stretched out the heavens like a tent, to live in. And you understand, like, put a tent around a ball. Good luck. But a
Yes,
tent
right.
goes on to a flat, stationary plane on the ground. And again, this is the thing that we're looking at. I mean, we're getting into, well, wait a minute. I mean, I thought NASA and I thought that we've been up to space and stuff. But again, when you start investigating that, personally, I don't think that man can get far enough up to see the entire majesty of how big and how vast this earth is. And it's a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow because, again, they've seen the pictures. These are the proofs that people throw out. And we can address that later in the interview. But going back to the foundations, I think it's very critical that you look at it, you take it for how the Holy Spirit intended it to be taken. And rather than applying all this, it's figurative or it's allegory, and, there are so many verses that say that it's fixed, that it's stationary, that it does not move. And we want to continually move in this ball throughout the universe.
Right. All right. Hold on, everyone. We'll be right back. All right. Welcome back, everybody. I'm going to read a passage really quick from 100 Truths by William Carpenter, that the earth is not a globe. It says this: who then are the foolish people? Those who believe the record of experiments made by searchers after truth, or charge the conductors of these experiments with dishonesty, never conducting similar experiments themselves, and declare the results of such experiments to be so and so, when the declaration can be proved to be false by any man with a telescope in 24 hours. Mr. Proctor, the sphericity of the earth cannot be proved in the way in which you tell us it can be. Well, we tell you to take back your words and remodel them on the basis of truth. Such careless misrepresentations of facts are a disgrace to science. They are the self-culture that says all flimsy, shallow, and superficial work, in fact, is a lie of which a man ought to be ashamed. That the earth is an extended plain stretched out in all directions, away from the central north, over which hangs forever the North Star, is a fact which all the falsehoods that can be brought to bear upon it with their dead weight will never overthrow. It is God's truth, the face of which, however, man has the power to enrich all over with his unclean hands. Mr. Proctor says, we learn from astronomy that all these ideas, natural though they seem, are mistaken. Man's natural ideas and conclusions and experimental results are then to be overthrown by what? By astronomy? By a thing without a soul? A mere theoretical abstraction? The outcome of the dreamer? Never. The greatest astronomer of the age is not the man even who can so much as attempt to manage this business. We find, says Mr. Proctor, that the earth is not flat, but a globe, not fixed, but in very rapid motion, not much larger than the moon and far smaller than the sun and the greater number of the stars. First then, last paragraph. First then, Mr. Proctor, tell us how you find that the earth is not flat, but a globe. It does not matter that we find it so, put down in that conglomeration of suppositions which you seek to defend. The question is, what is the evidence of it? Where can it be obtained? The earth on which we live and move seems to be flat, you tell us. Where then is the mistake? If the earth seems to be what it is not, how are we to trust our senses? And if it is said that we cannot do so, are we to believe it and consent to be put down lower than the brutes? No, sir. We challenge you, as we have done many times before, to produce the slightest evidence of the Earth's rotundity from the world of facts around you. You have given to us these statements we have quoted, and we have the right to demand a proof. And if this is not forthcoming, we have before us the duty of denouncing the absurd dogma as worse than an absurdity, as a fraud, and as a fraud that flies in the face of divine revelation. Care to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an incredible point. And I mean, Carpenter and like Robotham, and I mean, there's always been great men that have been kind of fighting this all throughout time. I mean, up until of last year, it really started exploding, and it's so incredibly exciting to see everything that's happening here over the last couple years. What they're saying is incredibly true. Now, you have to understand that when Olsen Copernicus just nailed it down and said, here's what the heliocentric model is, I mean, for 500 years, everyone took that on faith. I mean, air travel, I mean, getting up into the sky, I mean, wasn't invented until like the 1900s, and only until like the 1960s, could they go up. Now, you have to look at these agencies that are supplying us and becoming our authorities for all things globe. And really, everyone points to NASA. Well, it doesn't take very long to start looking into this agency and finding out that right from the start, it's occultic. I mean, its links are satanic. I mean, you've got Masons, you've got the Jesuits. I mean, you see parallels all throughout time, really trying to expand this heliocentric model and just in every which way indoctrinate people into it and say it's fact, it's real, it's true, it's science. And I think that's one of the scariest things, is that we've got to a point now where scientism, that people understand and believe, they don't look at it as a religion, they don't look at it as a theory, they don't look at it as a belief system, they look at it as fact. Because what they have told us is, no, this is fact. This is our reality. Yet everything is theory still. The theory of gravity, the theory of relativity, the theory of evolution. And again, they're throwing out these theories with no empirical, scientific, experimentation that can be done. You just have to take their word for it. And I think that when they kind of got that picture of the blue marble, in 72, that's what just sealed the deal. But I mean, we know, looking and analyzing these photos, that from start to finish, it is nonstop fakery, what they're doing. I mean, to some people, it seems hard to digest that so many people could be in on this conspiracy. But you have to understand, it's not men. This is satanically driven. It's a spiritual war that we're in. And they have worked with certain key agencies, men throughout history, and Satan has worked very gradual, getting us to a point. Just like the decline in morality, which we're seeing, and depravity, it's all continuing over time, but it's very slow and gradual. You don't just introduce this concept to shock everyone. I mean, if this concept, was introduced in biblical times, I mean, no one would have believed it. It would have just been laughed at. But again, they've raised up science. The smartest people, in society are the scientists, is what we're being told. So we kind of just trust them. We say, well, they have to know. They've got the degrees. They've got that real complex math that I can't understand. So we just have to trust them. Well, anyone that really wants to dig in and look into the photos, I mean, ask yourself the question: why is it that there's only 2 photographs of the Earth, one in 72, and then they put it out in June or July of 2015. The White House retweeted it. You can look up the article, and they'll say, wow, 43 years, we got the second picture, photo of the entire Earth. We had to get 1 million miles away, they say. Well, I mean, in 72, they supposedly went to the moon, which is only 240,000 miles away. Well, apparently in 2015, they have to get 1 million miles away to take this perfect picture. So there's inconsistencies all throughout. I mean, the photos that they show us, I mean, you can find out how quickly that they're fake. And then ask yourself the question, in 2016, why is it that you cannot find any HD video footage of the spinning ball Earth anywhere in existence? The only thing that we have of the entire Earth is a time lapse of 25-hour time lapse. And in these 25 hours that you see this time lapse, going through its, cycle or whatever, none of the clouds change formation. Now, you just look up in the sky and you see the clouds change constantly. Why is it in the 25 hours not one cloud changed? Again, this is fake from start to finish. It use your mind, use logic, start looking to what God says versus what man says. All throughout the Bible, it talks about the wisest man will be foolish in God's eyes. I mean, he will take man's wisdom and completely take it to rubble. I mean, there's so many verses that talk about beware of man's philosophies and wisdom and knowledge and rely on me. But yet we have so many people, and I'm not even just talking about the people outside of the church. I'm talking about Christians that are still buying this model because, I don't know, maybe they love NASA, maybe they love the whole idea of space. But again, when you start critically thinking of these things, understand that it's a very dark, satanically driven, over long period of time to get us to the point to where we are today.
Yeah, really good point. And I'm asked that the kind of the same thing that you were just talking about. People ask me, well, why? Why would all of a sudden NASA or humanity, or even if it's these secret societies, why would they want to achieve such a deception? What would be the point? And in my opinion, it all goes back to even a couple of verses which are found in Isaiah chapter 14, where Lucifer, well, I'll just read it. It says, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. And in my opinion, because we know this is a spiritual war, and that it wasn't just the Masons that all of a sudden at some point decided, oh, well, let's create a whole, alternative system for understanding and conceiving of the earth and the dynamics of solar system, and that it all, in my opinion, goes back to this verse that Lucifer, Satan, wanting to exalt himself above the stars of God to be as the Most High, that it was he and the rebel angels, that they are the spiritual authority for even the New World Order and for all the deceptions that we see that are part of, because this alternate system, it gives him the authority to being the Son and being the Son God. That heliocentrism totally demotes the earth as being the focus of God's universe and as being the central, the central focus of life and inhabitation, and it being created special for us, being created in His image, and that the heliocentric worldview and all of that supports it, the Darwinian that we evolved of monkeys, all of that buys into and ties into Lucifer's efforts to be as God, and that it establishes a foundation for his having achieved with the sun worship and with all the pagan religions this exact thing, in his exclamation to want to do so. And the next part of the agenda, which I believe we are seeing unfolded even right now, is that the rebel angels, the ancient aliens, they are going to be asserted as being the creators of humanity, and that will further the whole preponderance of lies that are built upon this alternative system. Robbie?
Yeah, and it's a really great point that you brought up. One of my documentaries I did was on the UFO alien deception. And if you kind of follow this path, I mean, does it not make sense that Lucifer would want the entire story, not just to say when he ascends and he takes his throne and declares himself, president of the earth or whatever. Again, he has to explain to humanity everything, and explaining that, yes, you were created this way and you were injected. But I mean, Lucifer can appear as an intelligent life form from some other place in the universe, and the entire construct of even space, for that matter, the adjectives dark, black, void, vacuum.
Yes.
I mean, these really don't even seem descriptive of the Most High. When He creates, it's diverse, it's colorful, But I just always had an issue with space itself, and I was just like, it just seems like it's empty, it's dark, it's black, and it's like we're praising, we're totally in awe when we look up and we think about this billions and billions of galaxies in the construct of space, and yet could we be attaching Lucifer's idea and his world, to the Most High? And I think, that's something to consider, because again, all this construct is not just what he's kind of fed to men, but also to explain everything without the Most High, without God as the true creator, without Jesus basically just identifying with him. Now, when it comes with, his fallen ones and everything, the world would be very ready to accept the likelihood of, intelligent life forms somewhere else in the universe. And I believe that through Hollywood, I believe through secret societies, I believe through the Jesuits, even through the Catholic Church, constantly, even with their telescopes. I mean, they have a telescope called Lucifer. I mean, people just look into this and you have to scratch your head. What is the Catholic Church doing, with a telescope called Lucifer? I mean, it's like they're not even hiding things anymore. I mean, this is right out in the open. All the great observatories, and you look into kind of how, what are they looking at? What's coming? And I think we're being geared up through Hollywood. We're being geared up for contact. And I think that basically you can't have any contact if you're in an enclosed creation. I mean, if we're sitting on a stationary plane, with the firmament over top of us, I mean, there is no aliens as the fact of intelligent life forms that evolve through Darwinian means. There is no, evolution. There is no global warming. I mean, all of these things to unite humanity, even global warming. I mean, if you stop and think about it, they're constantly looking for causes that will unite the entire world under one cause. And global warming is a way to make people pay, pay in the system. We're going to, we have to take care of Mother Nature and Earth. They elevate Earth, the ball, as almost a goddess. I mean, it's always, you always see this within everything when it's in the movements itself and Greenpeace and all that. But again, here we go. Hollywood is gearing us up. They're continually conditioning us, with space, the idea that someday we'll be able to do that. Yet it's all science fiction. Yet they say it is science. And the fact is, it's not. And that's the scariest thing. So it will be so much easier for the world to fall for the great deception, spoken of in the end times. I mean, there's many theories on it. But I mean, if you stop and think about it, that it would be very, very plausible for the great deception to include a scientific worldview that not only unites like the atheists, the people that don't even believe in God, but what about all the world religions that the Pope is trying to become head of and unite all the religions? I mean, everyone is waiting for, the Messiah. I mean, Christians are waiting for Jesus, and you got the Jews are waiting for their Messiah, and you got Islam, either Muhammad or Jesus is coming, and then you got like the Amman, and you got all these different things. Everyone, the Maitreya, everyone's waiting. The question is, will the Messiah or the false Christ come with a scientific worldview understanding? Because I think that could be a really major deception, because it affects everyone, no matter what faith you're under or non-faith. So I think that the scientific worldview had to be constructed. It wasn't just constructed to attack the authority, the Word of God, to distort, God's true creation, but also for the entire storyline of history, even into Revelations, to the end times. The fallen ones, are at it again. And like Jesus said, as the days of Noah, so it will be when the Son of Man comes again. So again, whatever was taking place, and we can talk a little bit more about it, because I know you've done incredible research on the book of Enoch, and so have I, and I'd love to talk a bit more about that. But again, if we get into the Watchers and the fallen ones and the book of Enoch, Jesus literally said, what happened, what was going on there is coming again. And I believe that they will come in a scientific worldview type of way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the next part of the end game. Even Werner von Braun, he warned this to Carolyn Rosen, who was his assistant, saying that all these different steps would occur and that they would lead to their trump card would be that the ancient aliens are creators. And I absolutely know that this is part of the strong delusion. And when Yeshua, Jesus Christ, was talking about, as in the days of Noah, what people don't understand is that before the flood, and one of the main reasons that the deluge was brought upon world is because of the sons of God mating with the daughters of humanity, creating a race of giants. There was all this corruption and deception, and the bloodlines had become tainted and everything. And it's the same kind of thing. We're going to see again, the release of the Nephilim, the giants, the fallen angels, and their interdiction openly into the affairs of humanity, disclosure, all of that. And that's part of the esoteric meaning implied in Matthew 24 and Mark 13 and Luke 21. And yeah, we'll talk about the book of Enoch, because my work with my latest book, The Flat Earth as Key to Decrypt the Book of Enoch, it's only by understanding the flat circular plane of the earth and the heavens spread out and the dome, the firmament established above the flat circular plane of the earth, that one can understand the descriptions of the motions of the sun and the moon as is given and detailed by Enoch in the book on the courses of the heavenly luminaries. And that the other really incredible teachings that are found in the book of Enoch, which is the main reason why so many people have studied it, is because of its elaboration on the watchers and the giants and all of the things, the mysteries of, the secrets of the heavens that were brought here to humanity, the things that they taught to humanity and got people involved in wars, the creation of weapons, root cutting, sorcery, things of that nature. And so I'll open this part of the discussion with, we know that the firmament, as is stated in Isaiah, with the molten looking glass, that there's a solid structure to it. And so my reasoning with understanding the firmament is that perhaps this solid structure is also is the reason it is a solid structure is to keep the fallen angels, because we know they're not from way out there and they're not from some other star system from somewhere, but they are here and have been locked here and are imprisoned here. And that could be one of the reasons for, the solid structure of the firmament being as such. And so let me get you to comment on that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Book of Enoch was a fantastic study. I mean, when even before Flat Earth got into, the Watchers, getting into the Genesis 6 account, I just thought it was incredibly fascinating, because here you are, Genesis 6, you have this verse, and it's just really quickly, talking about the sons of God, coming into the daughters of men and creating, the Nephilim or the giants, and you're kind of like, and then you just continue on. You're like, well, wait a minute, back up, and you start looking at that verse again. You're like, wow. And then you start looking at the meanings, and I know that there's two different theories, but I mean, I think it's very hard to come up with the sons of Seth idea on that. Right. But I mean, when you're looking at angels, doing some sort of act with the daughters of men, humanity, and creating, this hybrid of sorts, and you're very, very fascinated again. So then you start looking, into the Book of Enoch, and really, Book of Enoch, I look at it before Flat Earth as it was a massive expansion of what was going on in that one little chapter in Genesis 6, right? Or that even a few verses. It just expanded on it, and it was incredibly fascinating to learn exactly, what happened and the reason why. And okay, well, that kind of makes sense, that God would flood the earth, and he had to, that Noah and his generations were, pure, and they were found, perfect. It starts to, all start to make sense. But what I found really fascinating was, coming to Flat Earth, of all the verses, all the chapters in the Book of Enoch that definitely talk about creation, right? Yes. Even down to the moon and the sun being the same size. Well, here we go. We've been told that the sun is 400 times bigger, and it's 400 times, further away, and that's why, they just seem to be identical in the sky. Yet, you have a confirmation here with, and I believe, sometimes you have to be careful with extra biblical text, but I look at the book of Enoch and the book of Jasher, as probably the two strongest ones, just because the Bible itself refers to them. It says,
Yes.
is it not written in these books? Go read them,
Right.
So I've always been, incredibly, direct when it comes to these two extra biblical texts, because the Holy Spirit inspired Bible literally is referencing them. So we should look to them. If it starts to contradict the Bible, hey, maybe let's be careful. But again, in no way in all my research do these books contradict the Bible. If anything,
Right.
they expand on them, and they give you a deeper meaning of what's going on. And even the book of Enoch, being discovered in the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1948, it basically says that it was reserved for a future generation. Right. So here we are, we have the book Enoch, and we're reading through it, and we're getting a very deep understanding of the Watchers, of the fallen ones, and what was going on, what was taking place on Earth. But then you've got even a deeper understanding of, like you had mentioned before, Zen, about the luminaries and about their past and circuits. And it's a mystery. We're all trying to figure this out. But to me, that's amazing to think that, we can be looking up in the sky and going, whoa, we're trying to figure this out, and maybe we never will. Again, to me, with the Most High, the intelligence, and he would be so much higher than our understanding that there'd be certain things that would just be out of our grasp. And we can marvel at that for our entire life. We never have to solidly, confirm and figure certain things out. We can figure out when it comes to historic account, when it comes to the Bible, but when it comes to like creation itself, trying to figure out DNA, try to figure out life, how life is created. It's so complex. They say that the fastest computers on Earth, they're not even, they're like 0.000000001% the computing power of our most powerful computers all put together, So it just screams, intelligence. It screams such a high intelligence. And to me, it's very, very intriguing to see, God's truth and have that revelation in your life, rather than listening to the lies of the world and all of their foolishness that they've told men.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. We'll be right back, everyone. All right. Welcome back, everybody, for a second hour. I'm going to open this portion, this segment, with a real quick reading from Enoch, the animal farm parable, which is found in chapter 88. It says this: Again I lifted up my eyes towards heaven, and I saw a lofty roof. Above it were 7 cataracts, which poured forth on a certain village much water. Enoch, again I looked, and behold, there were fountains open on the earth in that large village. The water began to boil up and rose over the earth, so that the village was not seen, while its whole soil was covered with water. Much water was over it, darkness and clouds. Then I surveyed the height of this water, and it was elevated above the village. It flowed over the village and stood higher than the earth. Then all the cows which were collected there, while I looked on them, were drowned, swallowed up, and destroyed in the water. But the ship floated above it. All the cows, the elephants, the camels, and the asses were drowned on the earth, and all the cattle. Nor could I perceive them, neither were they able to get out, but perished and sunk into the deep. Again I looked in the vision, until those cataracts from that lofty roof were removed, and the fountains of the earth became equalized, while other depths were opened, into which the water began to descend until the dry ground appeared. The ship remained on the earth, the darkness receded, and it became light. And so the focus of why I read this particular passage is because it's mention of the firmament as being a lofty roof, and that a lofty roof has in its implications a solidity to it, being even the word firmament, with the word firm being as part of it, implies solidity, and that there is a physical structure to it. And so let me get you to comment on that, Robbie.
Yeah, Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, when you're looking at the account of the flood, I mean, you have the windows of heaven opening up, you've got the fountains of the deep breaking open, and you've got rain from the clouds. I mean, you've got three sources of water. I mean, it is incredibly clear. Anyone that reads the text can see that there's three sources of water. A lot of people say, oh, it just rained, and that's what happened. But it says the windows of heaven opened up, the fountains of the deep broke open. And you're understanding, even just with, water filling this basin, but also releasing, it makes sense that there'd be like a draining mechanism. And that's clearly what's talked about there in Enoch, but it clearly says that, in the Bible, when it talks about when the windows of heaven were shut up and the rain from the clouds stopped. I mean, this is right, in Genesis, and you can clearly see that this is the account. And again, when you're looking at extra biblical texts such as Jasher, I mean, you have Nimrod, and Nimrod, with the Tower of Babel for the longest time, it never really made sense. I mean, here it is, like, man's kind of uniting, they're building this tower. But you stop and think about, building this tower to the heavens, and you had read that great passage, Zen, about, how Lucifer right from the beginning has wanted to ascend to the heavens.
Yeah.
And he's driven men with the same idea that it's this quest to get up there, whether it's from the Tower of Babel to like NASA, whatever they're doing up there, trying to figure out, this enclosure, but lying to the world while they're doing it. Again, you're looking at it as a complete hatred. And I mean, when you read Jasher and you find out that Nimrod literally understood and knew the account of the windows of heaven, the windows of this firmament, this dome, that there literally were like a gateway of sorts. And when you look at it, his intention was to find where he could kind of get up there and dethrone God. I mean, this is very satanically driven. They had a proper understanding of what happened in Noah's time. And yet, through all this period of time, we've always come to these verses before we came to this revelation that, we're dealing with a ball. And it never made quite sense. Like what would God have any concern with sinful man building a little wee tower? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it wasn't to the case where he says, whatever they believe, now they can achieve. And he goes down and confounds their language. And I always look at that as it's a very loving act. I mean, he could have sent lightning bolts and just killed them all. But he didn't. He confounds their language, and they diversify all throughout the earth and stuff. And again, at that point, I think that the intelligence or knowledge was completely diminished at that point, all the stuff that had been learned, because again, now you got to kind of start from scratch. You got different languages going on. And you kind of see that parallel, when it comes into, history and getting into biblical accounts. But I think time and time again, when you start trying, just try your hardest to start looking at it. Even if you have a hard time believing this, just see if you went with this model, if all these verses that you were reading in the Bible that really never quite made sense, you had to go allegory with them because I can't take that literally. Well, when you get into an enclosed creation, when you get into the sun, moon, and stars being placed in the ceiling, there is a stationary plane. You can start to see these things come clearer and clearer, and you can see the deceptions for what they are, and you can understand, like we were talking about before, kind of the end game. Like, not only do you have to diminish, the worth and dignity of people and detach them from the true creator, but also you can start constructing all of these imaginary science fiction tales of space. But to the point of the great deception, you have to have the whole world completely unified, not just in a, I start to think sometimes, and I know there's a lot of theories on the one world, religion, but I'm saying, could it be possible that the one world religion spoken of is somehow incorporated with a scientific worldview? I think it's very, very likely, because this is the way we're heading. This is what we're told, not as a belief system, but as fact. This is reality. We have already proved it. We have the pictures. We have, all of these people, doing this and that. Why would they lie? So they've kind of deceived the entire world. And I think that, in order to deceive the whole world, it says that the Antichrist would come with all lying signs and wonders. I mean, even to the point of bringing fire down from heaven. He's going to have very miraculous things. And I think that we're going to look at them technologically, where we have a lot of special effects. So it's going to have to be pretty incredible to deceive the whole world. But again, if you kind of see the parallels and you understand where we're heading, and you had brought up, when it comes to the logic of, extraterrestrials. But if you look at the key scientists, they're all saying, Richard Dawkins goes so far as to say that, if there is other, created, they're, done through evolution and a Darwinian means. And, at some point they seeded us, they planted us, they injected their DNA into our DNA. And here we go right back to Genesis 6. When you start to understand that they are basically completely directing us towards this idea and making it more believable with Hollywood, with NASA, with space. Oh, we're looking for water. Oh, we discovered water on Mars. There must have been a civilization there. Okay. It's only a matter of time before they say, we found life. Now we're going to be in contact. And when they do, how many people are not going to believe them? Everyone's going to believe them. The authorities are already establishing themselves as such. So there isn't going to be people, and I'm talking, within the world, other than the ones that know the truth of the true creation, of the fact that we're dealing with humans and angels. There is no other life forms.
Right. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Just really quickly, um, when you look up the word firmament, it's the word rakia. And in the biblical usage of it, it says extended surface, solid, expanse, firmament, expanse, flat as base, as support, firmament, a vault of heaven supporting the waters above, considered by Hebrews as solid and supporting waters above. So there you go. Just like with the molten looking glass, there's a solidity. It's a firm structure. And so I wanted to just get your take on the firmament, what you see it as, and also with Genesis's order of creation. And then there's a question from the chat room. I'll get you to comment on that as well.
Sure. I mean, bringing up the firmament again, when we're getting into like these agencies, I mean, it's a really compelling study to start looking into Antarctica. But just kind of briefing through that, you've got all these expeditions, and the first one down there is, expedition Operation Nimrod, which is, kind of interesting. They would use Operation Nimrod. Here we go, right back to the Tower of Babel. But anyways, they go down. They got Operation Deep Freeze, Operation High Jump. And, well, anyways, they discover something, kind of freaks them out. So that all these nations that were carving up Antarctica, because apparently there were so much resources there, and there were so many amazing things, for the world over as far as coal and uranium. And well, anyways, they all back out. They sign a peace treaty, all these 30 some nations, and say, no one's going there. Well, right after they kind of go to the edge of the earth, and this is in the construction of a stationary plane. You go to the other edge, something happens, you say, okay, we're going to put a peace treaty together, no one can own it, we're not going to allow anyone to go there unless, they've got, approval for science, or, they can take you to the interior, but again, try to go say, hey, I want to take off and I want to go explore it, see how fun, you go along with that. Nothing's going to happen. But right after that, they go, they create, NASA or whatever, and the space agencies. Well, U.S. and Russia, for 4 years straight, sent 110, these are megaton warheads, and you can see this footage, and it's like they're shooting these rockets way up into the firmament, and these huge explosions over 4 years, 110 rockets. And you're bringing up the physicality of the firmament. I think it's incredibly strong because their megaton rockets couldn't even crack it. I think they were, like Mark Sargent says, sometimes they were trying to map it out. I think they're trying to crack it, just like Nimrod trying to find these doors or trying to get up there so that he can dethrone God. I mean, it's such a hatred. They're looking. Again, nothing new happens under the sun, like Ecclesiastes says. And again, man's intent, when it gets incredibly dark and basically possessed by Lucifer, it is driven by this obsession with ascending the heavens and going above the stars.
Yeah, and I think that there's something too, as far as both Nimrod and trying to create this gate to get up there in testing, seeking for this portal, and also that Operation Fishbowl and High Jump and all these different things that after they had discovered, the firmament and the solid structure of it, that they are trying to crack it or find a way out. And the reason being is it goes back to, the rebel angels, the fallen angels being imprisoned here and not from out there somewhere, but that they've been confined here. And, with what Legion, the demon, said to Christ, Yeshua, when he was here, Jesus Christ, when he was here, have you come to torment us before the time? So they know that there's a time when the gig is up and judgment will ensue, and then they will be condemned for the things that they have done and for the things, even like with the book of Enoch and talking about all the things that they did in delivering and bringing the secrets of the heavens, the mysteries of the heavens here, and sharing them with humanity, and teaching us to war, create weapons of war, even how to abort children within the womb. All the different, the sorcery and the demonology, all of that. And so I absolutely believe that that is the reason why they were doing what they were doing, and why they sent up all these nukes. And like you, I agree, the structure is so solid that even, these nukes couldn't affect it in any way. And so they know that they're stuck, and that possibly, CERN being Stargate technology or something of that nature,
Hmm.
that it's another attempt for them to create portal gateways for them to be able to both invite and bring in other evil, and also for them as a way to get out and to escape. And I would also add, as far as Nimrod, and and the reason the Most High separated all the tribes and the tongues, is that that was also a judgment against what would be similar today, a new world order, and unifying humanity under one king or one authority, to be able to unify all the efforts, in a global, even though we know that word is a lie, but in a planetary type of way, in a world dominating type of way. And so that was the judgment against it too, as well. From the chat room, um, and because we had also mentioned that, as far as Mars, what do you think of space? We are told it is a vacuum and a void. There are monstrous black, and that there are monstrous black holes, vast blackness with dark matter holding everything together. It doesn't even sound like something the Most High would create, does it? And so I would also get you to comment on what your thinking is as far as the planets, the wandering stars, and also of Planet X or Nibiru.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. Yeah, bringing up, black holes. I mean, here we go with all this black, dark kind of, symbology. But again, you're coming back to that construct of space. And what I start to think about sometimes is we know that, when we're talking about hell, I mean, it's the absence of light. Sometimes people will talk about, the fire. And I'll talk to people all the time. I'll say, look, listen, let's just forget the fire and all these, things that are talked about. I mean, Jesus, what I find interesting is, Jesus, they look at him as, the Messiah who he said he was, but he talked, I think it's 80% more about hell than he did about heaven, right? So he's talking about this place, but what I find really intriguing is that there is no light in hell, sorry. And just think of how frightening it would be to be somewhere for eternity where there is no light, to be an absolute pitch black. So again, I'm looking at kind of the darkest, deepest, horrible place that light doesn't exist, because we know that God, is light, right? That no sun is needed, when we're with God, because he's,
Yes.
I mean, there was light before even the sun was created. So to take the absence of God and put yourself in a position where you're going to completely be absent from God, there's going to be no light, pitch black. So I don't know if anyone's ever just gone into a pitch black. And I'm not talking about at night when the moon's out, but try to go into a place where there's absolutely zero light and sit in there for even an hour. It's absolutely terrifying. It's horrible.
Yes.
It's just, you can't even see your fingers in front of your face. Again, we have this construct of like billions of galaxies in this space construct. You got black holes. I mean, now they're coming up with dark matter and dark energy. Everything's dark. It's black. And again, I just think that there's something going on here with almost praising the darkness instead of the light. We're told constantly throughout the Bible that we should be, of the light, not of the darkness. And again, here it is, with all this obsession and people, and even a lot of people in their research, and they're fascinated, and just they want to explore space, and they're intrigued, and they want to find life and all these sort of things. So when it comes to planet like Nibiru or Planet X and all these things, again, I think when it comes to meteors or all these types of things that people talk about, it's fear. And I think Satan works very well, not just that he's the father of all lies, but fear is a great motivation for men, because men will do stuff that they normally would not do. So if you continually keep people in a state of fear, it will actually start determining their actions and the way they respond So I just think that, yeah, I mean, we have nothing but fear happening constantly. Like, oh, right back to how did the dinosaurs go extinct? They say a meteor hit the Earth, and they also talk about that it's coming again, that we will go extinct at one point because, meteor is going to hit us or whatever. They constantly are talking about this. But again, we're back to this heliocentric Big Bang universe. And even just getting into everything throughout time, the people that have constructed the Big Bang, I mean, you can find out even who coined it. I mean, you got Jesuit, Catholics, you've got all these people, all bringing this along the lines. You got Hollywood, you've got everyone mapping it out. And even when they want to, again, I was talking to someone the other day and we were talking about like Area 51 or, whatever. But when you get into these type of conspiracies, as long as you get people still believing in the reality of space, I mean, you can get people fixated like, oh, I wonder what they found. And I got this evidence that, a spaceship crashed and they're dealing with all this type of stuff. As long as it's in the construct that they want you to think, then it's fine. Even if they're letting some stuff go, like they've actually contacted some of the fallen ones, or the fallen ones are actually kind of working with humanity and all these sort of things. As long as it's through the big grand delusion, the lie of the heliocentric Big Bang universe, they've got you. Because it doesn't matter, because when contact comes, when the revelation comes, trust me, these things are going to look good. And I've always said that when they come, not only are they going to look good, they are going to prepare us for a hostile alien force that's coming. They're going to say they're like the Borg. They're trying to assimilate us. They're not friendly at all. Don't worry. We've been watching you. We're here to help you. If you look at all Hollywood, what do you see? You see this constant theme of they're here to help. They're here to help humanity. Whether it's the fact that we're going to blow up the planet or they got to prepare us for a coming invasion, but don't worry, we're going to aid you and help you. You see this even in Marvel. You see it in all the superhero movies. A constant theme running around. But I think it's going to be so deceptive that it's going to have the appearance. The Antichrist will have the appearance of taking down a very evil order. Like the New World Order you talked about, I think that he will come and he will many people that have been spiritually blind in becoming Christ-like and very good. He has to be good. Look, he just took on a really bad system, but it will be so grand that he will suck everyone in because he will want that worship, he will want that adoration, and yet he will explain everything the way it is. But when the true God, when Yahweh, when Jesus Christ comes back down, people are going to look at it as an alien hostile force. I truly believe this because when you read Revelations and the Battle of Armageddon, you see that verse where it says that they see him coming in the clouds and they turn and make war with him. And you're thinking, that's so crazy. How are you going to turn? You see God, you see Jesus Christ coming in the clouds, and you're going to turn and make war with him, whether it's through, our machinery, whether it's through, the very fact is that for the world to actually to go against something, and everything that we've had constructed, if you bring space into it and you bring in, Star Trek and Star Wars, you've got enemies. And if anything, it could be very easy to deceive the world in when all the plagues happen and when things start going on, to continue to blame it on this, intelligent life form, but very hostile and not good. Just like the Gnosticism, where they flip it. Lucifer's the light bearer. He's the illuminator. He's the one that wanted to set us free. Yahweh is the cruel God. It is this reversal,
Right.
And we see this in Hollywood. We see this constantly, where we start cheering, and we're like, wait a minute. We maybe shouldn't be cheering for them. You get into the Transformers. A lot of people are like, the Decepticons are bad and the Autobots are good. But if you actually look at that movie very carefully, look what's happening. The cube of life is presented, and the entire mission is to kill, destroy life. You look at it, and you're going to see, if you look at that from the Watcher's point of view, from the Book of Enoch point of view, you will see the parallels of them aiding humanity. But again, there is this evil other force there, and we've got to do everything in our power to destroy them, because what do they want? They want worship. They want true worship. But again, it's this very subtle thing that's been put into Hollywood and that's been put into literature, where we start rooting for the wrong people, and I think that that's part of Satanic's delusion in getting the entire world to go against God.
Yeah, and he does succeed in unifying world, as far as curing all the ills of humanity or whatever we may be dealing with. And he does unify the forces of humanity against the coming of the Lord. And it all plays out, and then, that's that's when the gig is truly up, when the Most High kills them with the sword of his mouth. And so, Well, one other thing, as far as the planets, do you see them? Because it's my opinion that they are not like the plane of the Earth, and that we're it. It's not like there's other planets out there with other terraform, and a lot of there's all these things where people believe that there was previous existence on Mars, and I used to believe and buy into all that, and I used to keep up with all of those kind of stories and would even share them on my website at fallenangels.tv. And I used to study all the testimonies like Andrew Basaggio, just, talking about Project Pegasus and forget her name, Eisenhower, Laura Magdalena Eisenhower. And they were talking about how they were enlisted to be part of this colony, this Mars colony that has been there for a very long time, and that they are able to, with this jump room teleportation technology, to go back and forth, and that they don't need to use like anti-gravity systems or the UFO technology or anything like that. But since in coming to understanding on the things that we're talking about this evening, I no longer buy into those kind of things or believe that, there are other Earths or Earth-like planetary terraform systems similar to what we live on here and what all the other creatures also occupy. And so, comment on that?
Well, yeah, I would say that I agree. I mean, it's very clear in Genesis that he created lights in the sky. I mean, you got the sun and the moon, one for day, one for night, and they also created stars, right? You look at the luminaries. I mean, I think for the longest time, the planets is what they have told us, have always been considered the wandering stars, right? Book of Enoch even goes into it, talking about how they kind of went off their path, and they're actually going to be punished, right?
Yeah.
Like there's actually a consequence for what they chose to do. But again, when you're looking at what they've taught us as terra firma, just like the moon, we went on the moon, we played golf, we drove around a rover. We're being told that, we have rovers on Mars. They're driving around, yet they're sending pictures back 120 million miles away. I mean, what kind of Wi-Fi is that? But anyways, we kind of get these pictures and stuff, and we believe it. And then they have a picture of Pluto, which actually has, a silhouette of actual Pluto from Disney that you can put right onto it. I mean, this stuff is so blatant. It's almost like they're not trying. It's almost like they're just completely mocking us. But no, I look at the Bible very clear that it's the ceiling. These are the lights that are in the sky. I think that is the majesty. I think that the entire thing has all been a lie when it comes to planets. And I used to, there'd be a time when I was like, okay, I believe in the heliocentric Big Bang universe, and the other thing with other life forms come up. And I'd say, well, first of all, if aliens come and make contact with us, I knew they were fallen, they were demons, it was a deception, right? They would claim they're from other planets. But let's just say that, God loves creating. He creates lots of life. Well, okay, here's the reality, and I'll pick it up after the break.
Yeah, hold that thought. We'll be right back for final segment, Aaron. All right, welcome back, everybody, to final segment. The show always seems to go by so fast, especially when we're covering topics of great interest such as this. But I wanted to give you a chance to finish what you were speaking about before we got to break, Robbie.
Yeah, I was just saying that, God loves creating. So let's just take this as an example. If there were other creations out there, understand that Satan fell to earth, which created sin, which Jesus came and was sacrificed, and he made ransom once and for all. The Bible's very clear that he died once to, pay for the price of sin for humanity. So understand that if there are other created orders out there or beings, they are pro-God. They walk, they commune with God daily. There is no sin. They have not been tainted. Therefore, why would God allow them to come down to confuse us even more than we're already confused? It talks about Lucifer, that he's the father of lies, that he's the one that confused him and his fallen ones. They're the ones that are here. So for any other life forms to exist, they would be communing directly with God, and there is no way possible that he would want to confuse us even more than we are by having multiple creations coming around and hovering, and it makes no sense. So I mean, if you actually think about it, again, it's just a monster lie. The whole idea, even to the point of believing in Jesus, but saying, well, yeah, but it's understandable that there's going to be, life forms all through the universe. The reality is, no, there's not. But they will continually, they will pursue this quest for life. And again, they will have everyone believe it because everything, all the discoveries, whether it's the water on Mars or whatever they detect, I mean, I figured they have 20 Earth 2.0 planets that they've detected in certain galaxies, 10, trillion light years away, or just absurd numbers they give you. And it's like, you stop and think about that. What kind of lens, what kind of zoom do they have to see? I mean, the big discovery recently was the graviton waves. I mean, 3.1 billion light years away, or whatever. Sorry, it was 3.1, billion years ago. I mean, they detected these graviton waves in the past. Think of this logically. How is that science? How can you actually even verify anything or experiment or do anything based on billions of years in the past? But again, we eat this stuff up. They show us a little animated thing, and we're like, look at that. They found gravity. The fact of the reality is all these things are theories. There is no science to it. It's all been a lie. And like you had said before, this is salvational when you understand that everything, whether it's the Big Bang, heliocentric universe, giving us evolution, giving us this whole created reality that doesn't need God, creates someone that basically lives their life with no accountability. And maybe because of their simple nature, they're happy to live that way because maybe they don't want to have to answer for the actions when they die.
Right. Yeah, they don't want to believe in judgment because that would for a lot of them that ends their fun. But we were talking about earlier in just talking about the waters above and how the firmament is dividing the waters above from the waters below. And so my question to you is, because I've also speculated on this, what do you see as being above the firmament? What do you think is existing out there? Because I consider that the waters above, as you said also in Psalms, that they are still there. And so, any idea on that?
Well, I'm going to say, biblically speaking, I mean, you got the firmament, you got this body of water, and then you've got the throne room of God.
Yes.
Rob Skiba on his website, I think it's testingtheglobe.com, has an illustration that he put together just based on what it says in the Bible. But really, it describes us in a bathysphere. And he's constructed a really cool model with the pillars. It does say that we're the footstool of God, the earth. It says that he looks down on the earth in his throne room. But he's constructed a really cool model. But really, I mean, from the Ezekiel vision where it says above their heads was the firmament.
Yes.
And above that was the throne room. And what did they see there? They saw Jesus on the throne.
Yes.
There was a figure of a man, and they're explaining, when you're getting into Christophanies in the Old Testament, I mean, Christ had appeared in the Old Testament. A lot of people think it's just the New, but understand that he is not created. He's always existed. He's been one with the Father the entire time, the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. But even when it gets to John, the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and the Word became flesh, right? We're talking about the Word of God here, and it's very important to look at everything that is illustrated there. When it comes to it, understand that there is a theme right through the Bible that above our heads is a firmament, and above that is the throne. So the next time you go out, look up in the sky, God is a lot closer than you think he is.
Yes, I agree. And also, there's other passages because I did a show on the throne of God, and I was talking about how not only that passage, but in Exodus 20, Moses and some of the other Levitical priests, and then in Revelation, I believe it's chapter 15, it talks about the same thing, the firmament as a sea of glass. And then there's a mention of the appearance of sapphire. And it's my opinion that the reason we have both the sea of glass and in conjunction to the appearance of sapphire, and also in relation to the throne of God, is that the waters above, they give the skies, the appearance of the sky is because of the waters above, and that's why we see the blue, and that the references to the sea of glass, that this would be the firmament which is being described, and that this is also where the throne of God is. And I'm also in agreement with you that, Yeshua is mentioned as coming into the flesh, but that he has been with us and has dealt with and been in relationship with other Old Testament prophets, even with Adam and Eve in the first book of Adam and Eve. It talks about the word of God in several mentions. Like I'm working on a text right now called the Thracian Chronicles, the book of Atum and Ua, which is a very ancient account of this life and story of Adam and Eve. But it mentions in a lot of their relationships in dealing with God that it was actually Christ, Jesus Christ, Yeshua, that they were dealing with as the Word of God, and that He's also referenced at other times as the Spirit of God or the angel of the Lord, or in similar terms. And so, we've been dealing the Old Testament patriarchs and Israel. They've been dealing with, and humanity have been dealing with Jesus and with the Most High for very long time over every era and every epoch of history. And so I'll get you to comment on that.
No, I would totally agree. I mean, I think a lot of times people will look at it, and the Trinity kind of is hard to understand, the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, but understand that Jesus is our creator. He created things. And again, when you're getting into the Old Testament, I mean, it's very clear that no man can see God and live, I mean, in its present form. So, I mean, you look throughout the Bible, like you talked about the angel of the Lord. I mean, I get into like the furnace there with Nebuchadnezzar. There's just many, many references right back when they were walking with God. I would clearly look at those as, in the manifestation of Jesus. He's existed always, just like God the Father. But when we understand that God is spirit, but also other indications, it just all comes together and you understand. And I mean, to me, the most incredible thing is the Bible is the greatest love story ever told. And,
Yes.
There's a lot of times that I'm just like, God, why do you love us so much? Why, God, did you choose me and shower your grace on me? So, I mean, it's nothing but thankfulness, because, I always tell people, like, if you're looking down at an anthill and, you're looking at these ants, and then, like, if you're going to become one of them, they're going to like gang up on you and kill you. It's like, I mean, we would kind of probably just step on that anthill, but I mean, here he had loved us so much that he literally, became understood, all these things, had the temptations that we do, and had sinful men, and redeemed us, because there was nothing in our own works that we could earn our way to his favor. I mean, sin basically means missing the mark. We were all tainted, and there was nothing we could do. And it's just a beautiful love story, and it makes me excited, and I'm so passionate to share the Lord with people, because again, it's just the most remarkable story when you understand the Bible, and you kind of go through it as an overall, what is the overall theme of the Bible? You ask people that sometimes, and you'll find out really quickly that they probably haven't even read through the Bible. But if they really have a proper understanding, you'll see the love for his people and his plan to redeem them and restore them. And it's just an incredible thing.
Yeah, absolutely. What is man that thou art mindful of him? Well, let's talk about some other interesting stories that that you came to understanding on, that are related to kind of this topic, that, in my opinion, like Isaiah chapter 38, which, speaking about the sun going back 10 degrees, that all of, that can't make sense according to the heliocentric worldview, and that the only way that you can understand that is when you understand, as the book of Enoch, the book on the courses of the heavenly luminaries, in my latest book, in talking about the motions of the sun and the moon, that it's only by understanding that the sun and the moon are in movement, in revolution and circuit above the circular plane of the earth, that one can even begin to decipher those particular stories. And it's also why Enoch, in the book on the courses of the heavenly luminaries, spends 14 chapters in describing the motions of the sun and the moon, and not that of the earth and the moon. There's not one passage or one scripture in the book of Enoch or in the Bible which reference the motions of the earth. And the reason being is because, as it states in scripture, the earth is motionless, fixed, stationary, and created as foundation for the firmament which was spread above it. And so, can you share other passages which you were, which led you to come to even greater detail in your understanding as far as the flat earth and geocentricity?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned the verses. I mean, there's First Chronicles 16:30. Fear before him all the earth, the world also be stable, that it be not moved. I mean, you got Psalms 93:1. You got Psalms 96:10. I mean, you got so many verses to support the fact that this earth does not move. I mean, and we've just been told this incredible lie, and that's part of the deception. Is if you ever want to figure out, if you're looking at these authorities and you're saying, well, they're lying, whatever they're saying, just try to think of the exact opposite, because it's not like they tell us, a lot of truth. I mean, it's all lies. There's nothing in evolution that's true. It's not like they, told us something about the monkey becoming us, and nothing is true. I mean, Satan is just completely bent out on completely perverting, distorting, and lying to us and having us believe it. But I mean, what I found really fascinating, because this is a great thing to kind of close on for anyone that's listening and that they're skeptical or they just don't know if they can get their head around this. But what I found really intriguing was when I started doing the study, and I explained before, like in the book Enoch, when it talks about the sun and the moon being the same size. Well, looking into the Bible, it's very, very clear that the sun is masculine and the moon is feminine, right? And looking into all the verses, and God made the two great lights, but it will talk about like Matthew 24:29, the moon shall not give her light. You got Mark 13:24, the moon shall not give her light, right? You get into Ezekiel, the moon shall not give her light. Again, you got masculine, you got feminine. Well, what I found really interesting is we've been told that the moon is a reflector of the sun. But if you actually do this, and this is scientific, you go out and when you stand in the sun, you're hot. When you go in the shade, you cool down. Well, what people were finding, because they wanted to kind of see, okay, well, the Bible is clearly saying that there's two light sources. I mean, it is being self-illuminated. So in that case, let's try to measure this light, or let's try to figure out if this is true. Well, people were actually finding, and this is all over the world. I mean, Rob Skiba has done latest testing. I mean, I'm going to be doing a testing here soon, but I know so many people have done this. And they find that when you're out in moonlight, you're cold. And when you go in the shade, you actually warm up. It is the exact opposite of what the sun is doing. And people are finding on full moons that you can get as high as like 12 to 15 degrees difference, and they are doing multiple tests. I mean, the idea of magnifying sunlight where we can burn paper, what would happen if we tried to magnify moonlight? Well, they're finding that if you magnify moonlight, you can actually make objects even colder. So there's going to be experiments done here in the next few years of like hyper magnification, where they can actually create incredibly intense beams with sunlight. So they're going to apply the same principles with the moon and see if we can start freezing stuff. But there is no doubt, and this is scientific, this is empirical scientific, through observation, through experimentation, something that anybody can do. You can test it over and over. You could repeat this. It could be observed by multiple people. This is what science is. So I always go on the record and say, look, I am not anti-science. I think science, real science, is good. Scientism, the religion, the agenda has become, it's been hijacked, and it's basically taken that term to deceive us. True science is about doing experimentation, asking questions. They tell us now, all the time, Neil deGrasse Tyson or Richard Dawkins, there's no questioning this. There's no debate. It's settled. We've already figured it out. But that's not real science. Science is asking those questions and having something that you can experiment. None of those theories, I mean, even down to gravity, they've never quantified it. They've never seen it. They've never measured it. And yet, we're told that this is everything that basically explains the entire heliocentric universe. Understand that every question that they can't answer, they just say gravity, because gravity is like this mystical, magical force. Right. Just go read up the definition of gravity and then ask yourself the question, is that science? I mean, it is preposterous. But again, I think this is a really cool thing, because here you go, the Bible is talking about the moon giving off her own light. If this is true, we should be able to verify it, or, at least attempt to. What we're finding is we are verifying it over and over. Science has no explanation for it, because there is none. If it is sun's light, it would be diminished sunlight, but it wouldn't be the polar opposite of the sun.
Right. And yeah, the scriptures say two great luminaries were created, one to rule over day and the other to rule over night. But also the fact that the properties of moonlight are different from the sun and negates the proposition that, that the moon is reflecting that of the sun's light, because the properties would not be different in the way that we're talking about. And there's also other experiments that have been done as to how even too much moonlight can be detrimental to a creature's health if they're only exposed to moonlight, whereas it's the opposite with sunlight in that we receive benefits like vitamin D and things like that from that of sunlight. And so, yeah, there's a lot of things that we're now learning as far as scripture that are confirming witness, like with the work that I did on the book of Enoch and confirming that it's only by applying a flat earth to the course on the book on the courses of the heavenly luminaries that one can understand the description of Enoch's motions of the sun and the moon through these six gates of heaven, which in my opinion, because we've abandoned geocentricity and the belief, as far as the flat earth and that the sun and the moon are what's moving above the earth, it shows that the book of Enoch is divinely inspired because, it has encoded within it understanding that is affirmed by the biblical text, which we as humanity have abandoned as knowledge and revelation for at least the last 500 years. And so to me, these kind of things that we're learning now affirm the divinely inspired nature of the scriptures and the book of Enoch, and coming to understanding that, yes, the earth doesn't move, and, that we're not revolving or orbiting around the sun, and that we're not spinning on an axis at 1,038 miles per hour. And so all these things, in my opinion, confirm and reaffirm the other aspects of scripture, which, that we were created in the image of the Most High, and that the earth was created as a special place for our inhabitation, and that of the other creatures, and that we are unique in the universe in that regard. And so, if you have to revisit the scriptures and these kind of things are affirmed as fact, well, then all of the other things which are also referenced in as far as the last days, the prophetic nature of the scriptures and what's coming, Matthew 24, Mark 13, and Luke 21, these things also have to be reassessed and reevaluated by humanity. And so that has huge implications for, where we are and what's coming. Robbie?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you mentioned it, and I say this all the time, that we are unique. We are special. Earth is like the pinnacle of God's creation, of what he created first before the sun, moon, and stars. Understand that we are completely unique in our creation. I mean, a lot of people will say, well, everything I see up in the sky are ball, therefore we're a ball. And I'm like, well, think of this logically, and this is from a Christian point of view. Does it even make sense that everything we see in the sky, God would create us exactly the same? When he says that we're the earth was completely special, unique, is not a light, number one. What was in the sky were lights. Why do the lights have to be the same thing as the structure that's being lit? That makes no sense. But people will apply this logic, and I think that's how deep this cognitive dissonance is. I think the indoctrination has been so strong, like you had said right at the beginning of the broadcast, then, right from an early age, from grade one. You've got that globe in your classroom, and you spin it, and they tell you, there you are. You never really fully question it, and unfortunately, you're at an age where you can't even ask the questions because your brain hasn't even developed to a point to sit there and say, yeah, but how does that exactly work? You're just told this is what to believe, so that when we give you a test and say, do you live on a flat earth or do you live on a globe? Check globe or you're going to fail your test, right? So we're not really introduced with critical thinking anymore. We're told what to think. And unfortunately, it's been a very detrimental thing to society. But again, we are special. And if you read the Bible, you'll see that over and over and over. But of course, all throughout history, Even with Copernicus, literally, he has a quote where he says that it was the sun. He goes, the sun should have the prominence because it is bright. It is the source of light. It is bigger than the earth. Therefore, let's give the sun the prominence. Again, you can see this sun worship. You can see this prominence, giving it to the sun, to Ra, to, again, time and time again. It's like, let's highlight the sun. Let's give sun all of its magical properties to make everything work rather than the earth. And I think from time to time, you'll see this, as you research it in your studies, you'll keep coming back to sun worship. And now, as the true Son of God throughout the Bible, what it declares, Satan's agenda has been another sun worship to direct their attention, eyes off the true Son of God to the sun that he has created in everyone's mind of saying it's the originator, everything starts from suns. I mean, we're told that all the stars are suns. I mean, they didn't just stop with giving us one sun. They had to basically pervert the scriptures when it says that he created the sun, the moon, and also stars. These are completely separate from the sun, but yet we've been told they're all suns. I mean, we don't even have a really big sun. We have just a mediocre sun. I mean, there are suns like Betelgeuse and stuff like it's so much bigger. I mean, it's just nonstop lies,
right,
distorting God's perfect and created order. It never ends. And again, if you start to apply this logic and look at it just sincerely, pray to God and just say, God, let me search and know things and all truth in your name, and have that prayer and honestly try to look at the text. You will see that it just never stops. The sun continually comes back. If you look at the Bible, the sun has zero prominence with God. There's not one verse you can find anywhere to give the sun prominence or, start looking at it in adoration. If anything, you see the polar opposite. It basically says, don't even look at anything in the sky and start, worshiping it or creating stuff. I mean, we're getting into astrology and all these things that God forbids, right? And yet, the heliocentric model, the solar system, that, these are the terms, and they all come back to the sun. And again, I think it's a fascinating study for anyone that wants to see, the beginnings, getting into the occult, getting into the old entire, cultures, that the sun and why it was in prominence. And just like Ecclesiastes says, nothing new happens under the sun. Understand that nothing has changed. We are in a heliocentric, scientific worldview that basically gives all its prominence to the sun. Nothing's changed.
Right. And the fact that Ecclesiastes mentions 29 times under the sun, that doesn't fit with the heliocentric worldview. But let me give you a chance to give out your website contact information, your YouTube, before we get to the end of the show, and then final commentary.
Sure. Anyone can reach me. I can go to YouTube, type in Celebrate Truth. That's my YouTube channel. I said my work so far comprised of about 70 videos. I've got everything from the climate change agenda to the UFO alien deception. I've got all sorts of conspiratory type videos, truther type stuff, but also a lot of biblical stuff as well. So I've got a kind of a vast assortment. I would say the majority that would fall under the great deception of what we've been told about the earth and God's true creation. But feel free to send me a message. You can also go to Facebook, Celebrate Truth. You can also look me up personally, Robbie Davidson. You'll even just type in Robbie Davidson Flat Earth. You'll see all sorts of things on me. But I encourage you, if you have a question, you want to reach out to me, send me a message. You can get a hold of me through Facebook, and my email and all my contact information is on my channels and on my my Facebook. But I enjoy it. Like I said, this is the one thing that I've never seen so many people turning to the Bible. If you want to look at it, in the conspiratorial or truther type circles, I've never seen, people, study the Illuminati or, 9/11 or even chemtrails and say, well, I'm going to get the Bible, see what the Bible says about chemtrails. But for whatever reason, everyone is going towards the Bible to find out, when they discover that there indeed truly is a God and a creator. So many atheists are becoming believers overnight.
Yeah, it's amazing. Hey, brother, we appreciate you. Thank you for joining us.